Okay.
You're on.
Thank you. So, good evening. It is October 21st. I'm Christy Boudreau, Chair of the Hatfield School Committee, and we're welcoming you to our October monthly business meeting. And as I call us to order, I just want to know that we're in a little bit of different space. We're happy to have you with us this evening. For those that are joining online, we just want to let you guys know that we will be transitioning off of Zoom. We're going to welcome people to join us through Zoom to make public comment, but then we'd like you to transition to watch the meeting through the YouTube link, and we will put that in the chat. Can you help us, one of you help us do that?
Sure.
That would be great. So as we kick off this evening, as we always do, we welcome people to join us for public comment. There was a sign-in sheet. I don't know that we needed the sign-in sheet. So we have no public comment from those who are with us in person. And so I'm looking at the Zoom meeting. Is there anyone, if you'd like to come on screen and wave your hand if you would like to make a public comment through Zoom? Okay. I'm not seeing anyone pipe up for public comment. I think several of those are us that we could see.
Is there something in the chat or no?
So now in the chat, so if you're joining us on Zoom and you're not making a public comment at this time, we're going to encourage that you use the link to go to the streaming meeting. Okay, and with that, you're keeping Zoom on or no?
I'll keep it on for a bit just to make sure folks
Okay.
who are transitioning over can get
Got it.
to it.
Okay. Thank you all. Our second item up for this evening is mission moments. And if we have a student report, this would be the time for our student report as well. No student report this evening. But I suspect we have some great mission moments. We had celebrated homecoming this last week. So I will start with administrators if you have any mission moments you'd like to share.
I'd like to share that because of the pep rally, we sent our 5th and 6th graders up. So it was incredibly exciting to see all of them donned in purple and white, walking up to Smith Academy to participate. Connor had an amazing video that he shared of how excited they were to be present and participate.
Awesome.
And I will summarize my mission moment with one word. It was homecoming. It was, since I've been there, the most well-attended homecoming I think we've had. It was a perfect day. And we had just so many people from the community come out and to support our students, our student athletes, our concession stands and everything. And it was a real, the sense of community that came, excuse me, that came out of it was really wonderful.
Committee, anyone here have a mission moment they'd like to share? How our school is bringing the mission to life? Nothing this week. Okay, is there anything that needs to come off the consent agenda? Great, so that means meeting minutes are approved from our last meeting, September 30th. And that leads us straight to Leah Gardner, our band director. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. Hi. For those who don't know me, my name is Leah Gardner, and I teach band both at Smith Academy and at Hatfield Elementary School. And I'm just here today seeking approval to take a larger band trip with the Smith Academy Band this year. So I guess I have not done this before, but I guess I will just start with our proposed itinerary and then why I would like to take a larger trip with the band this year. So here's our itinerary. So this will not happen until May. That way we have a ton of time for fundraising and whatnot. So we're thinking to take a 4-day trip in May, starting on a Friday. Then we have Saturday, Sunday, and then the students will be back Monday night-ish or Monday evening. And here's the plan from here. So we're going to take a coach bus, and for our first day, which is a Friday, we're going to drive down to Jenkinson's Boardwalk in New Jersey. And Jenkinson's Boardwalk is a family-friendly, student-friendly boardwalk. It's not like Atlantic City. There's an aquarium there, and I've received a couple of different itinerary packets from different traveling companies. I picked my favorite one for tonight to show you guys. But yeah, so Jenkinson's Boardwalk Aquarium, our whole packet here, it includes tickets to the aquarium there, and then there's also a boardwalk, and the beach is open there too, because this will be like May 16th is the day I'm looking, so 2 days after our concert. Nowhere near the elementary concert. So that's kind of our first day down there. It includes dinner for that night, and then we stay at a hotel in New Jersey. The next day we are going with Music in the Parks, which is it's another festival. It's kind of like the Great East Festival, except on a wider scale than just up here in New England. So Music in the Parks, the way that it works is that the band, we play in one of the local schools. We receive critiques and comments from adjudicators there when we play our performance. And then we spend the rest of the day at Six Flags. And in this case, it's Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey. And then there's also an award ceremony there because we're kind of in a competition for it. And we are it separates by division. So we're in the small division. And so then after that night, we are driving to a different hotel in Arlington, Virginia. And the remainder of our trip is spent in Washington, D.C. So for the Sunday, we are checking out the Smithsonian museums. We have tickets that are included for the Smithsonian National Zoological Park. And then for the final day, the students have a little bit more time on their own for the National Mall. And then we drive home on that Monday. Let's see. And then I'll tell you why I am looking into doing this trip this year. So for in band, I'll be honest, I have a very, very good group of seniors. They are fantastic. They're a larger group compared to some of the other years that I've got. And in band, it's kind of a thing that you're supposed to get 2 big trips throughout your time at Smith Academy. Because of COVID, though, what would have been their first original big trip, that ended up getting canceled. And then the last trip that they took was to Philadelphia. And from talking with the students, there were some questionable opinions about their trip to Philadelphia. So that being said, I wanted to give them a trip that mixed a little bit more fun and freedom in with the music and educational components. And then lastly, taking trips helps to bond the band together. The better bond that we have as a group, the better they sound. Is true. So I'll open it up. Does anybody have any questions about anything?
How many students?
We've got about 40 between 7th through 12th grade. So we fit on one coach bus.
How many chaperones will there be?
I have not found out chaperones yet, but I'm thinking there's me, our nurse, Martha, she travels with us because we do have a student with diabetes. So she'll be coming with us. And then I was thinking 4, 5 more. So that way we keep the groups under 10 people.
Committee? Other questions?
Do you have an approximate cost per student?
I do. So right now we are looking at, and I have it highlighted here somewhere. Here it is. We are looking at about $950 per student. To put this in perspective, this is about as much as the Philadelphia trip was a couple years ago. However, personally, I think this trip packs in quite a bit more. A lot of meals are included, so that way students don't have to pay out of pocket, especially in places like on the boardwalk and in and around Washington, D.C. A lot of our meals are included in this. And I've got 2 fundraisers set up and ready to go so far, and we're planning on doing a bunch of fundraising throughout the year to help lower this cost. That way hopefully try my best to make it an accessible field trip for all of our families.
And the room arrangements, how many kids per room?
We are looking at 4 students per room. 4 students per room.
Okay.
Are there options for students who wouldn't be able to afford it so that they could still participate if there was need-based?
I believe so.
That might be something Dr. Driscoll answers if you, okay.
Yes, the short answer to that question is yes, we do. We have a fund specifically for that purpose. We would hope that all students would be engaged in the fundraising process, and then the proceeds to that would help lower the cost for everyone. But if it is a hardship for a student, we do have a fund specifically to support students who fall into that category.
Okay.
We also have the STARS group that's helped out with field trip costs in the past. So we can utilize that as well, for sure.
Dr. Driscoll, can you just remind me, when was the last time we did Washington, D.C.? We had a Washington D.C. field trip.
We did that 2 years ago, and we did that for the whole school. And that was the general feel after that was that folks really like doing a big school trip. So this year we are looking to, not ready to present it to the committee yet, but we're looking to do a longer trip to New York City to see some of the historical sites down there and do that.
So this would
And
be a
cultural attractions.
different location.
Yep.
Though.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Am I correct that this, I mean, I remember that trip to some degree.
Yes.
This sounds like a very different itinerary.
Totally sounds like
Yeah.
a different itinerary.
we-
I just wanted to. Yeah.
If is it okay if I add? here?
Sure.
I also checked in with my high schoolers because I got their input for the itinerary, because when I first pitched Washington DC, they were like, wait, we've done that. And I said, well, wait, what do you think of this and this and this? And they were thumbs up for approval. I think they also had said that they'd never been to the zoological park there before, and that's new in there too. Yeah, and we get like an illuminated tour for one of the nights too, for all the monuments.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's
So-
beautiful.
This isn't going to conflict with prom because
No. It is the week before. I checked.
okay, because the 16th has been close to prom time in the past, so I just
Prom
wanted
is
to
the
make,
week after. It's
Good.
The 23rd.
I didn't want
think.
anyone having to choose between,
And in relationship to athletic stuff, what do we know?
With enough time, well,
I emailed Jason Duncan about it now, and he said that with the amount of space that we have, and considering it's only 2 days of school that the students miss, that should be easy enough to not schedule anything through.
Okay. And that's why we're like, talk about this in October.
yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Committee? Anyone interested in making a motion to approve this trip?
I will
Oh.
make. You can go.
Go ahead.
All right, I will make a motion to approve the band trip as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. Have a wonderful time. We wish you well with your fundraising.
I know.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
yeah, thanks for putting it together. It's a lot of work that
Yeah.
goes into doing
No,
those
no
trips.
problem. Yeah,
Excited for the kids.
me too. Yeah. I'll be taking more pictures this year than last year.
We look forward to seeing those. Like, we actually really do enjoy those.
Okay. All
Okay.
right, sweet. Thank you. Can I leave the hot seat?
You are so welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon or evening. Night.
Okay, so next up on our agenda is the conversation and a likely vote about moving sixth grade from Hatfield Elementary to Smith Academy. This is a conversation that has had a lot of time on our agendas. I do want to give administration the opportunity to share any parting closing thoughts before we move forward. And I really am hoping tonight to hear from the committee as we make this choice, because I think it's important to the community as a whole to understand why and how we reached the decision we did. So, but before we get there,
Sure. So what I'd like to do is just present to the committee the results of the survey that we sent out to the community and some of the input that I've had. Excuse me. So I'm going to present this now. You may not see it on your.
Mm-mm.
I think
But
you
we
have,
can follow
the
along.
committee has
Yeah.
access to this,
Okay.
so they have
Perfect.
seen.
And
Some of
when I
this.
put it up there, it should appear on the live stream. Okay. And I'll also talk everyone through it, so you all will hear what it is as well. So 6 to Smith Academy survey results. So overall results, the respondents that we had, 41 total respondents, 35 parents and guardians, 2 students, and 4 staff members. So here's a breakdown of all of the parents that responded. And it should be noted that many parents had students in multiple grade levels, so they might have had, they might have been included in a couple of the subgroups. But here's the whole group. So as you can see, the folks who strongly agreed or agreed with the move, and the question was, I agree with the following statement. The committee should move 6th grade from the elementary school to Smith Academy. 45.8% of the respondents, the parent and guardian respondents, strongly agreed or agreed, and 45.7% either strongly disagreed or disagreed. So that's the kind of the whole group. Not much of a difference there. It gets a little different when we start looking at the subgroups within those parents. So when we break it down from preschool to second grade parents, of whom 11 parents who responded were in that group, the folks who strongly agreed or agreed fell to 27.3%, and the folks who strongly disagreed or disagreed rose to 54.6%. So there was a shift with the younger students, parents of younger students who tended to disagree with that statement more, tended to be less in favor of the shift of sixth grade to Smith Academy. When we look at third through fifth grade parents, so the students who are a little bit older in the elementary school, parent students who are a little older, well, first of all, if we go back, we only had 9 parents who responded. Hang on. We had 11 parents who responded that were pre-K through 2 parents. We had 21 parents who responded that had students in third through fifth grade. And we saw that kind of that shift invert. So we had 52.3% of parents who were third through fifth grade either strongly agreed or agreed that the shift should be made, and 33.3% either strongly disagreed or disagreed. So it was kind of a mirror opposite of students who were younger students and versus older students within the elementary school. It should be said that if a parent said that they had students in second grade, fifth grade, and ninth grade, for example, that response would be included in each of those subgroups. So this includes any parent who had a student within that subgroup. Likewise, when we look at when we look at 6 through 8 parents, again, a smaller group responded, 9 respondents, and I attribute that to just being a little further away from the actual change itself. I mean, the folks who this will impact the most is going to be the current 5th graders, 4th graders, folks who will be in closer proximity to it. So again, we had 9 respondents in 6th through 8th grade. This is parents of current middle schoolers, and again, we saw a similar response that we did to those 3rd through 5th grade parents. 55.5% either agreeing or strongly agreeing, and 33.3% either strongly disagreeing or disagreeing. And then we moved to 9th through 12th grade parents, where we saw that shift back kind of towards where the younger elementary students were, with 45.5% strongly agreeing or agreeing, and 54.6% strongly disagreeing or disagreeing. So holistically, what that says to me is, you have a pretty much an even split when you include everyone who was asked across, preschool all the way through 12th grade. As we zero in closer to the proximity of the change itself, when we have, current 3rd, 4th, 5th grade students, as well as 6th, 7th, 8th grade students who would be part of that middle school, we see more support for that change than we do the further away you get from it. Staff, we had 4 staff respondent. I included this, even though it's a small number, simply because it echoes the conversations I've had with staff members who may not have taken the survey. We had 100% of staff who took the survey and folks who I've talked to who either agree or strongly agree. So the staff remains, there remains widespread support among staff, both at the elementary school, middle school, and high school for this shift. Students in this, simply because we only had 2 students that responded, and the sample size didn't seem to garner that, but I will say that both students were either, I think it was an 8th and 11th grader, and they both were opposed, those 2 students. The conversations I've had with other students don't suggest that that is that is emblematic of the student population as a whole, I would say. And then the last slide I have here with the graphs is the conversations that I had with fifth grade families. So I was able to reach out to all and talk to most of the current fifth grade families in the district. So we have 26 families of fifth graders. I was able to speak with 24 of those. And the breakdown is as follows. 33.3%, 8, are in favor. And to be in favor, it was strongly in favor. 33.3%, so 8, were not in favor, which is, again, pretty strongly opposed. And 33.3%, so 8, again, were in the camp of neither. Neither strongly in favor, neither strongly opposed. I will say, generally speaking, that 8 leaned slightly in favor. If for no other reason, then they said that they trust the school to do what's right. That was kind of the sentiment among that 8, the neither or both category. But I didn't get a strong enough sense from them that they were in real support to put him into that camp. So I put them in the neither/both camp. So a very equal looking pie. And then in addition, I solicited some input in terms of comments on the survey as well. And I tried to kind of put these together because many of the themes were similar across the board. So benefits that folks saw, that it seemed like it may be a better fit socially, developmentally, and academically, that there would be more social and academic opportunities, that the interactions with peers would be more age appropriate, and that there were curricular and instructional benefits, as I think the committee has heard from the 6th grade team about as well. And those themes really did seem to mirror some of the conversations that we've had. Concerns that were brought up. The main concern that was brought up continues to be kind of the interaction or exposure to older students. And a lot of those concerns were from the parents and guardians of that excuse me, were in that younger camp. That they may not have had kind of that same exposure, but there remains that concern. What supports are going to be there for the transition? How are we going to ensure safety during sports? The start time is something that came up several times with parents, and that included at the forum as well as during conversations. Is folks starting to see that their 5th graders are a little more tired, and if this would have an impact on that. There were some concerns about unintended consequences that this might have on enrollment, a concern about aftercare. One concern that came up several times was the kind of pandemic gap, and this was interesting. This came up from a number of folks, both in the survey but also during conversations, and it came up for folks who were in the no camp, so opposed to this shift. And there were a few folks that were in the no camp that were opposed to the shift, but they said that they would be in favor in a few years once the effects of the pandemic wore off. And that theme came up a couple times, that this group, when they were in their earliest years, may have had a kind of disproportionate developmental impact on their socialization. And then the general theme that this shift would be quote unquote forcing kids to grow up faster. And I use that language specifically because that specific language was used a few times in that survey. Questions that arose, because we also solicited questions, and I can answer some of these. Some of these have been answered, and I can answer these as we go through. Is this for financial reasons? The short answer to that question is no. This would be financially neutral. How would you separate the middle school from the high school? We've talked about having that kind of separate corner whenever there is transition time or transitions throughout the day, that they would kind of be traveling in groups. And we do monitor the halls between classes. Question was, can we look at start time? I mentioned that before. Will this impact enrollment? How are we addressing enrollment challenges? And so, part of the thinking behind this shift is that we don't have a crystal ball. We can't see the future, but we would hope that this would have a net positive impact on enrollment, because we have heard from folks who are leaving the district that they are leaving for a more traditional kind of middle school experience. And that's among other ways that we're looking to address enrollment challenges, including course offerings, exploring innovation pathways, other ways that we're doing that at Smith Academy and at the elementary school. Oh, this is a repeat. I didn't mean to put a duplicate in here, but what will the separation between middle school and high school students look like? We talked about having separate classes. The schedule would be separate classes, separate lunches, separate. The only time would be kind of that structured X block time. And then will this allow expansion of enrichment programs into lower grades? And the short answer to that question is yes, I would think so. Right now, band at the elementary school is 5th and 6th grade. So logically, it would be 4th and 5th grade. It may even be able to go lower. In addition, that would take one kind of teaching block away from some of the specialist teachers, so they may be able to offer more kind of specialized electives at the elementary school as well. And we would have those electives that we had spoken about at the high school too. That honestly was not something that really had been at the top of my mind, or even really in my mind, until that question came up through the survey. And then the last slide here is about facilitating a successful transition. So, in the event that the committee does approve this change, we would look to plan those next steps. So we would be looking at scheduling visits and tours, shadow days for students to come up to see what the school is like. We've already had the 5th and 6th grade come up for the pep rally last Friday, and it was awesome. I'm working to see that all the students in the video have a release so I can put it out there. But it was a great video of the 5th and 6th grade just really being very animated and cheering for I believe that was during the dodgeball section of the pep rally. And they had a great time. But we would look to expand that, not just during the community building time, but also so that we could facilitate just a level of comfort for students coming up that they might not otherwise have. We would codify the sports plan and make sure that it was crystal clear in the handbook what the expectation for 6th grade would be. The only reason that's not in there now is because we don't have 6th grade. They're not eligible to play. And so we would make sure that it was crystal clear that 6th graders were not playing on high school teams in competition. We'd keep having those step-up visits we talked about. We'd look to really facilitate and this came up last year, and this was I think one of the big reasons. One of my biggest hesitations is we talked a lot about the benefits for moving 6th grade up, but one of the things that we need to consider is kind of the loss of that being quote unquote kings and queens of the school, that the oldest students in the school, how we are going to effectively give the 5th grade that experience this year as well. And I think we can work with the elementary school teams, the 5th grade teams, the 6th grade teams to do that. So it wouldn't just be kind of an inclusion into the 6th grade end of year stuff. They could have their own experiences that would do that. One of the questions was around building facility upgrades. It's no secret that when you step into Smith Academy, sometimes it feels like you're stepping back in time, and looking at how we can as we bring more students in, how we can make sure we're keeping up with that, and then also how we're supporting our students, not just with step up plans and those things, but also with social emotional support. So what are we doing for our 6th grade students to support them with that? And I think that's my last slide.
Committee, do you have questions you want to raise at this time?
Dr. Driscoll,
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that you preempted my question on putting it in the handbook. So thank you. What will life look like for the 5th grade students once 5th grade is now kind of king of the roost down at the elementary school.
Mhm.
How will their experience be different with that?
That's a good question. I suspect some of, and this may be a better question for Ms. Petra, but I suspect some of the things that the sixth grade had would kind of fall to them. So reading buddies would be with fifth grade rather than with sixth grade. Things that experiences they got in terms of leading all school meetings, that kind of stuff would fall towards them. This year, and that's part of the reason I would like to make sure that we really focus on what sixth grade does this year, and fifth grade does this year, so we don't have that loss of them for sixth grade. But many of those things I think would be age appropriate for the fifth grade to step into. In terms of scheduling, I think we would continue to have the fifth grade, maybe not quite departmentalized to the level of sixth grade this year, but have them, have them preparing throughout the year too, to make that shift.
I mean, that only would make sense. I mean, again, I'm just wanting to have that conversation of this proposal was not put forth other than for the simple fact that they educationally believe that this is what's best for students. We have been preparing our students for a transition into Smith Academy since fifth grade, and now we're doing that step starting in fourth grade. So this notion of preparing them for a transition into the middle school is nothing going to be short of easy, because they have done everything to prepare them for that transition. Fifth graders right now, if this goes through, they're still going to be part of a student council, just like the sixth graders and the fourth graders. They are still going to be thinking about how to plan a step-up ceremony, because they're going to be leaving and going to the middle school. So there's definitely things that we're not going to stop doing, because they're not going to be the oldest in the grade any longer. And they might miss that opportunity being the leaders of the school in that regard of not being sixth graders. But that historically has always been the case anytime you've had a grade move to a different grade or school. That is a loss for them. But at the same time, there's other things that are going to be more important, like that opportunity that they're going to have by having those enrichment and those X blocks that they don't currently have now. What they do have is the opportunity to have some extra things based on what their teachers can provide, but it's only just that. It's not what the whole school has access to. So they'll have a lot more opportunities.
So I hear you speak about it would be fairly easy to transition, but let's also think about not all things will be easy. What do you guys see as the greatest challenges for making this move? Arm wrestling over who gets the room. I don't know.
No, I mean, it's just going to be the timing piece. It's just going to, I mean, the sixth grade team, the benefit of having the sixth grade team still currently in the school is that they can help the fifth grade teachers. This is going to be incredibly easy for them to begin having conversations about how to and how they organize the step-up ceremony that happens every year, because it's a huge transition. If the kids have been here with us ever since preschool, even in kindergarten, to leave to then move on to the middle school. They have all of this knowledge and ability and planning on how that can be done. That can be done concurrently with the fifth grade team. So really it's more about, I mean, we've tried embedding times and opportunities. I mean, the high schoolers already came to the elementary school to talk about student council. We're going to have that for 4 through 6 now, rather than having the fourth graders join in the spring like they've done in the past. So I want to be able to have them have that opportunity and have that leadership role this whole year, so that when and if this whole thing does happen, then I've got fourth graders who then will become fifth graders, will be the oldest. They can start that right away in the fall. They're already in that leadership role and could also support those third and fourth graders who would then be having that opportunity. So the biggest challenge really is people don't like change. Change is hard. Change is not something that's easy. So the hardest thing for those parents who are still feeling like their kids, and I understand that some don't feel that their kids are emotionally ready, but I think that's going to change when they actually get there, because I think a lot of kids who also felt like they weren't emotionally ready once they were there are loving it. They're thriving. It's just different. It's a change.
Yeah, I would say it's interesting to hear that because my biggest concerns about this shift are similarly more about this year than about next year. It's more about making sure that our current fifth graders don't feel like they're missing out on some kind of experience. And I think really being sure that we're being conscious of that as we're planning events throughout the year, that we're being inclusive of that. And similarly, it's about making sure that our current fifth grade would feel comfortable going in next year, because regardless, assuming if the vote passes and we do make that change, there are going to be some students who may not have felt ready. Similarly, that we have students sometimes in sixth grade who don't feel ready to go to seventh grade, and families as well that may not have felt ready. So once the vote is done, once the decision is made, if it is made to make this shift, then our role would shift from focusing on what that change would look like and what the schedule would look like and what the benefits would be, to okay, what can we do for the rest of this year for parents and for students to give them opportunities to come to the school, to be part of a day, to do shadow days, to come as part of parent forums, to make sure that we are increasing the level of comfort for everyone making that change to the as much as we possibly can. I won't say that we will make 100% of people 100% ready and feeling good, because that might not be realistic, but I think we can give every effort that we can to make sure that people feel comfortable, even if they were opposed to the shift, that they feel comfortable with the experience they're going to have. That's my biggest concern is just making sure that that this isn't a vote or a change that we're saying it's for this group. It's for everyone. It's for everyone, and our job then would be to make sure that everyone's comfortable. The other concern I continue to have is enrollment, and it's not. This isn't. I don't see this as a panacea to our enrollment challenges. We've heard that it may. We think that it may help with enrollment. I suspect it will, but it will be something that we'll have to closely monitor to make sure that that we have a pulse on it, and likewise in tandem with the other efforts that we're doing.
I spoke with two different parents over the last week who kind of came from different perspectives, but one has a student who's now in the high school, and she expressed how she was nervous when he was moving from 6 to 7 just to begin with. Mm-hmm. And looking back, she would like to share to families now who are possibly facing this that it's not as bad, and her student made the adjustment quite well. And she thinks, in retrospect, it would have gone fine if it was a 5 to 6 change instead of a 6 to 7 change. Another parent who was initially quite opposed to this move, after our last meeting, she felt more comfortable with it, still leaning towards not favorable of it. And then she also reached out to some of our 6th grade teachers and felt still more comfortable with it. I think, if she said, if she had her absolute say, then she would prefer we not do it. But if we do move forward with it, she's more comfortable with it now, and she's understanding it more. Sure. From just a logistic perspective with the presentation, and from the reach out with the 6th grade teachers. So.
Yeah, and I think it will be important for us going forward to know that doesn't end now in October. That's a starting point. That it's nice to hear that comfort level has increased even from folks who may be opposed, but that's that's going to need to continue throughout the year. I had a similar conversation with a parent of a current 8th grader who their quote was, we don't have a dog in this fight, but we would have, in retrospect, we would have loved to come up in 6th grade. They saw their student really blossom when he entered middle school, because of just some of the experiences he was able to have.
just looking at this list of things that we would do to facilitate a successful transition, there's a lot of things on here. I mean, I know we talk about like a ceremony, but visits and education plan meetings and sports planning and things like that. Can you just tell me a little about the bandwidth that we have to do all of this for 2 grades at one time with
Sure.
extra care
Yep.
to a new transition?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question because we have transition meetings every year. When students go from the middle school to from the elementary school to the middle school, we have more in-depth transition meetings. So we have students come up for a step-up day. We have meetings between teachers to talk about which students work well together, which students work well with what kind of instruction, as well as transition meetings for students on IEPs, so we know what their services are going to look like. So that would be expanded to 2 grade levels. We do have the bandwidth to do it, especially if we start earlier, and if we know we're going to be doing it. I would say we have the bandwidth to do those and more, because I would love to be able to set up times where students can come in, probably in small groups rather than the entire class up at once, but to come and spend some time in classes and even just shadowing students. I think we have some really great peer leaders that could really facilitate some connections there too. So I think we do have the bandwidth to do it, and because it's October and not March or April, we also have the time to do it, which is a key part of having that bandwidth.
Thank you.
Other questions?
So addressing one of the things, and I sent you an email today, and my biggest concern was that we have kind of across the schools issues that have lingered from the last couple of years. They're still kind of persisting that we're working on. How do you feel this changes our ability to continue to work on those issues?
Yeah, and it's I thought about that quite a bit after I read the email, because I think it's important, because this has become an issue that's really focused a lot of time and energy. But I don't think that our focus on excellence, our focus on enrollment, our focus on providing the community that we want to provide, I don't think that's independent of this change, and I think they work together. So in terms of community building, I think that this gives us an opportunity to expand what we do. I think we've heard from our teachers and about what that would look like for them, about having those connections to other students. In terms of academic excellence, I think we've heard from our teaching staff and our middle school team about how this would impact our ability to support the students and push those students too. In terms of enrollment and retention, again, this is the crystal ball question. I don't think we can say with certainty this will increase enrollment. I think we can say with certainty that we know that not having this in place has, at least in some cases, led to some decline in the enrollment. And with the other efforts that we do, especially focused in Smith Academy, because that's where some of our biggest enrollment challenges are, the benefits will include the 6th grade if they're part of the 6th grade community. So any additional electives, any kind of scheduling changes that we make to increase relevance to student learning, to increase class offerings, specials times, that kind of thing. Those, just by extension of having 6th grade at the middle school, would benefit those students too.
Would this bolster the ranks of the middle school enough to have X blocks be a middle school, like have middle school X blocks and high school X blocks?
It could, and just to make sure that everyone knows this, we currently do in some cases have just middle school X blocks and just high school X blocks for things like intramural sports. We already break it down, so it's right now it's 7, 8, 9 in one intramurals and 10, 11, 12 in the other. So we don't have 7th graders playing floor hockey against seniors. And I think absolutely we could look at that. And honestly, some of the X blocks are just that way because of who's interested. My fly fishing X block, it's all middle schoolers because they're the ones who are interested in fly fishing, which is great. So we walk together that way. And there are others, like I can't recall off the top of my head which others are like that. But sometimes part of the reason students sign up for X blocks is because they're really interested in what's happening. Other times, and this may come as a shock, it's because their friends are doing it. And so if you have friend groups that are interested together, they, you may have more middle school oriented X blocks. But we could certainly look at structuring it that way as well. And the X2 that we have is currently Genius Hour, so that's all middle school anyway, and that's focused specifically on middle school.
Last week, Connor, you and I talked about the homecoming dance and how this year it was all school. It was 7 through 12. And I mentioned that if this were to go forward, I can see that many parents would not be comfortable having sixth graders attending a dance that juniors and seniors were at. Are there other events like that sixth graders could potentially be with the older grades? Because I think that now if the sixth grade were to move up, it would be enough. It would be 3 grades of kids that middle school could do their own homecoming dance or their own homecoming event and leave the 9 through 12 to have theirs. But are there other events that are 7 through 12 that potentially you would pull the middle school out?
Yeah, absolutely. The big one that jumps right to the top of my mind is our whole school field trips. So when we did the DC trip, it was 8th through 11th grade, and I would like to see, and I would envision seeing a middle school field trip and a high school field trip, so that they have 3 years of field trips that might rotate at the middle school and 4 years at the high school, so that we're still able to offer those experiences, but not have the concern about those widespread groups. I also think that will make transportation costs lower because we'll fit easier onto coach buses in those groups. But yeah, in terms of the dance and the social aspect, I would envision kind of a shift towards like teen centers almost, where there's a dance option, but there's also maybe like a floor hockey game or a Nintendo Switch setup or different options. So it's not just dancing. And I think the team could get really creative with how those look, and also get some parent volunteers to help chaperone those kinds of things too. And I think that wouldn't be a big shift for the high school either. I think about prom and I think about the other dances, and they might like that too.
I brought that up because I think it's good for people to know that you're looking at all aspects of it, not just classroom or hallway or, it affects everything, and we're trying to consider everything.
Absolutely.
Other questions before folks have a chance to kind of weigh in and speak to where their heads are or their hearts, however you want to. Anyone want to jump in and share where they are?
I guess I can jump in since I'm a parent of a current 5th grader.
Yeah.
I've worked at schools where 6th grade was in middle school and 6th grade was not in middle school. And I feel like usually the consensus when they're in elementary school, the teachers were kind of ready for them to go by the end of 6th grade or by middle 6th grade. As a parent, my perspective is my son is ready for middle school. He is in 5th grade. He is quite a, I don't know, good reader, would like most challenges. I see for him and for other students who want to do more academically, more opportunities in middle school and high school. So there isn't as many for him in elementary school. And that's something that just came up in discussion with his teachers. I think maturity-wise, I mean, as a parent of another kid who is in third grade, I can't imagine him in middle school. And I think, like a lot of parents who have with the little kids, you really can't think about them being in middle school. And it's like, why are you rushing my baby to grow up? So if I came from perspective of my third grader, I probably would be against it and be like, I don't know, I can't think about it right now. This is too much for me to think about moving him in sixth grade. But because I'm a parent of a fifth grader as well, I'm like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. Like my kid is ready and he would benefit. There's definitely more benefits to detriments for him to move up to middle school. And thinking about, and a lot of times, every time I underestimated my children, they have proved me wrong. Every time I think they're not ready for something and I have to like back off and be like, you know what, we'll see, let's try it. And they have surprised me every time that they were more, it's usually me who's not ready for them to move up or do something that's hard. So I definitely sympathize with the parents that are worried about their kids and interactions, but at the same time, we do have to kind of let our kids go and and that's one grade. It's not like we're moving them to another city. They're moving up one grade. That's the perspective I have when it comes. I would rather see my kid embrace a challenge and try something new and have more of a challenge than be in essence held back and they're too young, they're not ready, because that's what these teachers have done. All they've done at school is prepare them, teach them, and it's also us. We have been preparing our children to move and get from fifth grade. If they don't move to middle school in sixth grade, they're going to move there in seventh grade. So having that argument, obviously my perspective is pro moving sixth grade to middle school. Just for me, the negatives, and from the perspective of like, what will they see in middle school, high school? Who are they going to interact with? The lack of control on of the parents or us not knowing. It's the same thing really in elementary school, preschool. Like these are sixth graders who are interacting with kindergartners, first graders, preschoolers. I can't see the difference with them interacting. It's just them who, and what's to say they're not going to be impacted more positively and learn good things versus where we are assuming that they're going to learn bad things from the older kids, which is a disservice to those older kids. Because I've been around the kids in middle school and high school at Smith Academy and a lot of high schools and middle schools, and they're for the most part amazing, more mature kids than I was when I was in middle school, high school. So I think like their interactions with their peers, for me, it's a positive. It's not a negative. It's actually seeing like what you could potentially do, because some of these kids have jobs. They have summer jobs. They have grocery store jobs. They already know what they're doing for a career. They have passions that they follow. They show their passion in class. They talk about it. Sports, like just being around other like sports where you're seeing your middle schooler, high school, your seniors or juniors, seeing their achievements, and maybe that will push you towards working as hard as they do, or push you towards a sport that you didn't think you could do, but you're seeing somebody else who's excellent at it and that you could learn from. So I would like to just flip that narrative of what are they learning from those middle schoolers, high schoolers? Like, what are they learning? They're probably going to learn great things. Anyways.
Thank you. Other committee members want to weigh in?
I mean, I don't know, Iman. I also have a 5th grader, so I feel like I have to go next. I really don't want to. I tried to prepare remarks multiple times and failed. And I think for anyone who's talked to me and people who know me as a human being, this has been very difficult, very difficult decision. Just to think about. And I acknowledge I missed some of the discussion in the spring, but since then we've had so many great presentations. I've talked to, the administration and staff and teachers and parents and my own family, because for me, it is very difficult to do this as both a school committee member and as a mom. And as a mom, what's the middle school version of the boohoo breakfast? I'm not ready. But I also think that's who I am as a person. And if that was happening in 5th grade or in 6th grade to 7th grade, I think I would probably feel the same way, to be fair about myself. So, this has been very difficult, but I've seen, these great presentations. I understand the benefits. I also really acutely feel some of these concerns about, that some of the families have. And so I would say that a turning point for me is I went to the Smith Academy open house. And as a parent, I was invited because of my child. And it was great. It was really great. And I felt like for me, what I walked away with was a deep feeling of how excellent that school is, how excellent Smith Academy is, how the middle school team is so united, how they really care for each individual student. The elementary school open house is like chaos of children being come check this out. That is not the vibe in middle school. There are not a lot of students. The ones who are there, I may have bred my child. But the teachers were wonderful. All of the staff there were great with the students. They were great with the parents. I could tell that they were working well together. And I could really say, like Aman was talking about these opportunities that would open up. Hatfield Elementary School is absolutely wonderful. But I understand that, by the time you're getting into 6th grade, it is middle school. You're a middle schooler. And so those different opportunities that Smith Academy is offering, I think are wonderful. And I think we have a team that will really be able to support our individual students. I spent quite a while talking to some of our special education teachers. Amazing the way that they support the developmental needs of the middle schooler, and yeah, all of them. Everybody was great. It was really nice. And for me, also being in that space was helpful for me to see that the middle school is a separate school inside a school, right? It is a separate area. They are cared for in a particular way that meets their developmental needs, and I appreciated that. Another thing that I think is a benefit that we haven't necessarily talked about as I was doing, other research, because more information, is that a lot of the concerns about, elementary school students moving into middle school is you're looking at a regionalized middle school, going from a neighborhood small elementary school to a large, big middle school. And that is not what is happening in Hatfield. Hatfield is going from a neighborhood elementary school to a neighborhood middle school. And I think that affords us the opportunity to really look individually at all our students. So that's just telling you about my experience. And how there are still things that not worry. There are still things that I think will be challenging. But overall, like my experience with that was very helpful to just see like the benefits that we could bring to this group of kids and to like all of the students in Hatfield.
Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
Do you want to go or do you want me to go?
McCavity?
I can go, Kathy.
I don't care.
So like Becca, this was stressful and difficult for me. And I've been thinking about it a lot and talking to lots of parents, people who were, friends or classmates back when I was here, and people who have met through my kid being in the school. I met another parent the other day in the preschool yard, just picking up Charlotte, and was able to chat up with a parent about it. And one thing that I've noticed is that my concerns aren't what a lot of other people are expressing. I'm not, for my kids and for all of our kids, I'm not worried about the are they ready aspect of it. Smith Academy is a small school. They'll be safe. They'll be protected. We have a great middle school team there. We have a great administration there. I'm not worried about them being too young for that transition. I'm not worried about them being exposed to things to which they shouldn't be. My concerns are more just based on the things that have been going on in the schools in the last couple of years. I'm afraid of taking our eye off the ball. I don't think this is a bad idea. I just don't know if it's the right idea at this moment. I'm worried about, we've had a number of behavioral issues at the elementary school and the high school over the last couple of years, and we have a plan in place to try to get that under better control. But it's a multi-year plan, and it's going to take time. It's going to be worked on over this year. We'll think about it again next year, what needs to be improved again and again. And I don't want to lose track of what is important at this moment with our schools. I don't want, we have possibly administrative changes, and that we have a member of our administration who's here on an interim basis for this year. So that's another transition for next year that we have to deal with. Yeah, my biggest concern is taking our eye off the ball. I'm also worried just about the overall direction with enrollment. I'm hopeful that this is a net positive. I think there's a non-zero chance that this could be a net negative. Just if parents are too afraid if before they give it a chance to happen, if they pull their kids out ahead of time, I'm worried that if that happens too fast, too quickly, that could precipitate things that we don't want. And then there seems to be a large portion of the community that we just haven't brought along with this. And I don't think it's due to lack of communication. We've been reaching out. It's been part of Dr. Driscoll's emails and Ms. Petrar's emails. We've had a number of meetings about this. And it's either, I don't know if it's people have picked their corners and they're just going with it, or if they're just not listening, or if it's neither of those, but they're just making suppositions out of thin air. I had one member of the community who's no longer of the community, they moved out a little while ago, but they just found out about this and they said, hey, what's going on with this? What are you guys trying to do? You're just moving the numbers around. It was probably the 74th time that I've heard someone say that we're moving the numbers around, which is just disheartening, because I don't think any of us 5 up here and any of the administration would even consider proposing this for that reason. But with my concerns that I have, and just with the lack of community understanding of it yet, I'm struggling to vote for it at this point. I am in no way saying I think this is a bad idea. And I know that our 6th grade teachers and the middle school team are completely uniformly in favor of this, and I get that, and I appreciate that. And I think if it passes tonight, I'm sure you're all gonna do a great job in trying to make sure this is as successful as possible. Again, my biggest concern is that in our focus on trying to make sure this is as successful as possible, that we're gonna drop something else along the way. And I don't want it to have a negative impact on the rest of our student body in focusing on making this happen. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Kathy, do you want to share your thoughts?
Sure. Iman and Becca said some things that I had been thinking of. especially Becca when she said, we're not talking about going into a regional school. I went to a regional school, so when I finished 6th grade going into 7th grade, I was now in a school with 5 other towns of kids that I had no idea who they were. What I like about this is that our kids, because we're so small, they really pretty much know everyone in the building anyway. My kids could always tell you, oh yeah, that's so-and-so, he's a, kindergartner. I'm like, how do you know kindergarten? Oh, I just know. But they really know the kids that are a grade ahead of them and a grade behind them. And that's really what middle school is. You're around the kids that were just ahead of you or just behind you. And I think that is comforting and not worrisome. There was one of the concerns that was about there's no aftercare. Well, there haven't been 6th graders in aftercare for a couple of years. They're just not doing it. I think this year there are a couple 5th graders, but not a ton. I have an 8th grader and a 4th grader, and my 8th grader, who is on an IEP, who is younger than her peers in a lot of ways, had no issue transitioning to 7th grade at all. It was very encompassing and like a family, and the team really looks out for kids, and the communication from the team to students and to parents is wonderful. They start emailing with students, hey, you missed your homework assignment, and trying to get the kids on board of being responsible for themselves. There's a lot of general executive functioning work that happens in the elementary school and continues into middle school where they work on these things, which is fantastic. I feel we have really great 6th grade teachers. And I really believe that they're going to be even better 6th grade teachers in the middle school environment and being part of that middle school team. What they're doing now is kind of isolated with just the 2 of them in that building, but moving up there, the benefits that they have definitely go down to the students and give our students a lot of benefit from being in that environment. In my question, I asked Dr. Driscoll about middle school events, and I'm excited to think with 3 grades of middle schoolers, it will open up even more options for our middle school to do things together. So in that way, I feel that should alleviate some anxiety or concern for families that are worried about middle schoolers interacting with the high schoolers, because if we have 3 grades of middle schoolers, it'll be even easier to have specific events for them. My 8th grader tells me that she rarely even, she said when she was in 7th grade, she rarely even saw the 8th grade in interactions throughout the day, let alone anyone in the upper grades. And she still says that now in 8th grade, that one of the X blocks, there's a couple of the older kids, and she has no problem with that. There's no problem in the hallway walking around, going to the bathroom. She visits the nurse every day for her meds. There's no issue with bumping into older kids that way. I agree with Aman about the age difference, that our current sixth graders are with kindergartners and first grade preschoolers. And I worry more about that age gap because those fifth and sixth graders are learning and discovering new words or new phrases or new whatevers that they're eager to try out, and our younger students might hear that more than anything 11th and 12th graders would say to our 6th and 7th graders. I think that our upper grade students will be ambivalent to the younger kids. They would be helpful. I mean, if they didn't care for them, they would probably just ignore them as older teens do with younger kids. I'm not concerned that the older kids would be an issue. I think we have really great kids in our school. I know my kids will see somebody in the grocery store checking us out. I know them from school. I've seen them. You know, it's exciting. They like looking up to these other kids. I think this is a good move. I was on the fence back in the spring. I've heard all of the presentations. I've had conversations, and I really think this is a good opportunity, and I think it will be less of a real issue of a transition than some people are imagining. I truly get that parents of younger kids can't even imagine what their kid's going to be like in 5th or 6th grade, that how could they do this? But our kids are different than us at those ages, and they're ready.
Thank you. I wasn't sure how tonight was going to go. And like Becca said, a little more homework, a little extra investigation. And I think all of us have been doing that in conversations with other parents, in a whole host of factors. And I appreciate the feedback from staff, because we've heard from a lot of staff, not just our 6th grade team. And it's been universally supported. Like, I have heard from many an elementary school educator and all of the middle school team and others at Smith Academy, and to a staff person, they've all been in favor of the move. As I sat and took all of that in and sat with it, I found myself asking, how we frame the question starts to change the answer. And I appreciated that each of you sort of looked at it from a slightly different perspective, some more different than others. And for me, when I step back and I frame the question, it's really about student belonging. And so when I went to decide what I thought was the right choice, it's centered on, where will 6th grade, particularly our 6th grade students, not every 6th, I was really just thinking about our own, where will our 6th grade students feel the greatest sense of belonging in our district? There's so much research that supports a student sense of belonging improves academic outcomes, increases continuing enrollment, and is protective for mental health. So that's a quote from MIT Teaching and Learning Lab. I'm happy to share with anyone who doubts all of the data, but it's like 300 million students across, 95,000 different studies. It's a lot of data that really looks at the impact of belonging on education. And it's about teacher-student relationships. It's about school climate and where they feel like they can contribute. And that is part of what is accelerating academic success. So when learners feel that they belong in an educational setting, they have student engagement increases, negative behavior incidents diminish, and academic achievement improves. And so I just looked at it. To me, it all kind of boiled down to that, because it's, I think to Dr. Driscoll's earlier point, this isn't about doing one thing and all these others. There's it's very integrated. And I can imagine I can kind of all hear the voices like, but you can make those students feel like they belong at either school. Like, you can do that work. And I agree that that is a priority for all ages. And I can hear the voices talking about keeping kids younger longer. And I get there, but I'm really not convinced that which school building they're in this particular case is going to have an impact on that. It starts to feel like when you decide to keep your feet smaller by not having larger shoes. One of the things that I stumbled across in the research was a book on modern puberty explained, which highlights that puberty starts 2 years earlier for kids today than what the age of their parents that went through it. So millennial parents to today's 4th, 5th, 6th graders, 2 years earlier. So when I thought about this, to me, this is and this sort of echoes, I think, much of what Aman mentioned. It was really about where the students feel like they belong, not necessarily where we want them to belong, but sometimes we can't control all of that. I hear the concerns about the gap in ages, but like Kathy and Aman before, I look at the fact that it is exactly the same age difference we have in our existing structure in our elementary school, where the common reaction to that age difference is to praise the benefits of older students setting an example for the younger ones. And I think there's no reason to believe it should be any different for this group. And there's lots of evidence of how it's controlled. So I'm with all of you who have expressed, I don't see that as a big concern. I want to also recognize that there are other ways to frame this decision that we haven't been talking about so much. There are a lot of districts right now that are having these very similar conversations, and it's about space. And if we were to lead our thinking through that question, I think we've all seen that our K through 5 students would benefit from this move because it frees up space, more about having ample room for, or I guess I'm going to flip that around. It's really not about having room in the classrooms. There are room for more kids to join us, but it's not necessarily that we have ample rooms in the building. And so this would free up that space for supportive services. And we would free up some staff time that I think would benefit K through 5. Specials teachers, support services, all would have added capacity. The other thing we haven't talked about much is if we wore our employer hat to make this decision, because we as a committee are the employer of all of the staff. And if we were thinking about it with that framework, I think we would be talking about the equity in workloads, particularly for our special education teachers and supporting staff. And here again, if that was the framework with which we answered this, we would be shifting our students because it would help that workload balance is what we've heard. The only place I think about, we've talked about it's a cost neutral, and I think that's true. If there were a place we would see added costs, the only place I worry about is that we would need to add special ed capacity at the elementary school if we stay pre-K to 6 because of that imbalance. And that would be an added cost to keep the status quo. I'm not going to call it a cost savings because I don't think it would save, but just keep us from adding. So again, it's a different frame for the question. All that said, I still think this should be a student-centered question. And so when I think about 11 and 12-year-olds and where they fit, here's what resonated with me. Where do they have peers that are most like them, particularly when you think about puberty and you think about all of the interests that they have and all of the opportunities that open up when you move to Smith Academy. I think about sport offerings, activities, X blocks. All of that is a better option for them than a ninth year at HES, because that's what sixth grade is for a lot of our kids. Keep in mind, they've been there for 2 years of preschool. It's a ninth year in that building. So where do the peers look like them and where do those interests lie? I think that goes to Smith. Where will they encounter a staff that most get them? I will echo Becca's comments. I think our middle school teachers are some of our district's most seasoned and celebrated teachers. Like, they're just fantastic, and they function as a team. Like, individually they're great, and they function as a team. And so I just feel like students getting more time with that group is such a coup. Like, that feels like a real win. I also think daily affiliation for our sixth grade teachers, who, again, I share the praise for our sixth grade team, but I feel like it's also a boon for their teaching of sixth grade students, because they get day-to-day time on that team, where their students and the student challenges and the curriculum are so much more aligned relative to their counterparts at the elementary school. School programs, I don't know about you, but I think back to the spring, there was a comment about watching the sixth graders in elementary assemblies. And if you've been to all school meetings, they're like the babysitter help, right? It doesn't feel like it's there for them, right? And I have watched several of them where, like, the little preschoolers, like, wandered around a little bit and they're like, nope, I'll help you with that. Like, they do take on a leadership role, which is great, but it also feels like it's less about them. I remember hearing one of the teachers remark, it's like, yeah, they have recess, but they don't really do recess. They just sort of stand there and visit. So the programmatic stuff feels like a better fit at Smith Academy, and the academic structure that's best suited for success. The state has dictated all those standards that line up with middle school. So feeling like we aligning schedules and how the academics are offered, that feels like a better fit. So even if we thought that all of this was the best for the students, are there reasons to still say no? Yes. If there was an insurmountable cost, which we don't have, like if it was a cost increase and it was going to be wildly crazy and we couldn't find offsets, but that isn't what we're looking at. And I would say yes, if we didn't have the room at Smith Academy to do it, but we do. And to echo Melissa's comment, change is hard. And I get that, but I don't think that's a reason to say no. I think it's a reason to make a decision early and to have a good plan and to hold everybody accountable to work in the plan, and doing some hard things. So I do think we have a lot of priorities. I don't deny, like, Adam, your comments resonate. I get it. But I think for all that we need to accomplish for our students, I can't find a priority that beats having those kids feel like they fit and they belong. And so I feel like for all of that, I think they fit it. So I appreciate all of you speaking to what drove your decision, where your concerns are. I think they're all really valid. Is there anything administration would like to say before we take a vote?
Not that I can think of. I just think, one more potential reason to say no would be is if we didn't have a staff and a team, I think that was fully supportive. And the fact that this has come from the very people that we entrust with our sixth grade, and is supportive of the middle school team, I think is, I think it lends a whole lot of credibility and credence to the idea.
Am I wrong in thinking that the crux of the workload lands with them too?
It sure does.
Yeah. But they're ready for it.
Yeah. So speaking of being ready,
Would you like a motion?
I really would.
I would like to make a motion to approve the sixth grade move to Smith Academy for the fall of 2025.
I'll second that.
Okay. This feels, I know we could do this with just a voice vote voice vote, but it feels pretty big. So I'm going to suggest that we take a roll call. Can we start at that end?
Sure. Sullivan, no.
Green, yes. Are we going with yes? Bench, yes.
Englehart, yes.
Boudreaux, yes. So you have what you asked for. So thank you all. I know it was a thoughtful conversation and decision. So, and now you guys have a chunk of work to do
Now the work
to
starts.
make it happen
Yep.
really
And we'll
smoothly.
make sure it is a smooth transition.
Can I say I really appreciate that we, the committee and the community, really took time and delved into this and thought about this and looked at every angle. But I also appreciate the work that the sixth grade teachers did, the middle school team did, to present us with all kinds of information. And Dr. Driscoll with reaching out to families and doing these surveys and following up really made me feel like we had so much information that really helped me anyway reach the decision that I did. And I just appreciate all the work that went into this. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
That's really true.
And likewise for the committee, because there was no small amount of work on your end either.
The due diligence was very much appreciated. And even from the sixth grade team, I mean, it's been incredibly helpful to have them active community members because a lot of conversations were held in parking lots and on the sidelines of games, because that's when families would ask questions and things were able to get clarified and worries were able to be a little bit more alleviated. So
And that's going to
huge
continue.
kudos to staff and
Yes.
faculty who are able to have those conversations with families.
And
We have a much better
continues.
plan. Like, I feel like the plan, it like looks so good right now. Very happy. about that.
Indeed. Okay. Thank you all. And with that, we get to move on. Anyone who's saying they need to move on for the evening, we understand that.
Madam Chair, I would like to take a short recess.
Would you? We can do
Yes.
that.
I
Okay.
don't know, I can just, or I
Let's-
can make a motion, whichever you prefer.
Why don't you give us a motion? We'll all take a short recess.
I would like to move to take a short recess.
I'll second that. All in favor of is 5 minutes sufficient?
5 minutes.
5-minute break. We'll reconvene at 8:35.
Aye.
Great. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. And we're up to our sixth item on the agenda, our seventh item on the agenda. Lucky seven. The administration is going to talk about the theme for the year, connections, relationships, and belonging. Dr. Driscoll.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So just as a recap, earlier in the year, in the summer, the administrative team met to really kind of look at the year to come and decide what our priorities were going to be. And really, it came down to facilitating and improving upon a strength I think we already have, but really driving home the importance of building relationships, building connections, and creating a sense of belonging in our schools, at the elementary school as well as the high school. So just as I mean, we already looked a little bit tonight about the body of research that exists around the importance of belonging, but here are some quotes that highlight that. Belonging is an essential aspect of psychological functioning. Schools offer unique opportunities to improve belonging for school-age children. Students belonging to school has been consistently correlated with many significant outcomes. Educational and psychological studies carried out in various contexts have shown that students' sense of school belonging is associated with several academic and non-academic outcomes, such as students' motivation to learn, level of academic achievement, and general future orientation. When the need for belonging is not achieved, there may be significant consequences, including an impact on intellectual performance, and hence learning potential may not be achieved. And I think that's, the not achieving potential is really a dig to me. And here are some related quotes from relatively famous people: Teddy Roosevelt, Henry Ford, and Dr. James Comer. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. No significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. And coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is a process. Working together is a success. All right. So I wanted to frame this conversation tonight with what we expect, as we focus on relationships, connections, and belonging, what we expect. What are, how does this relate to our overall goals as a district? So here are the outcomes we expect. We want to see higher levels of student engagement when we go into classes. We go into classes often, and we want to see students engaging, and that engagement has been correlated to belonging, to just having that sense of community. Fewer office referrals for misconduct as measured by office referral numbers. So when students, again, this is research-based, when students have a sense of belonging, have a strong relationship, it's less likely that they're going to act in ways that are not pro-social. We would like to see an increase in positive indicators in the vocal, SPIFFy, and DESA surveys. DESA is a new one this year, but those are surveys of student experience. I will say, as an asterisk to this one, we are already pretty darn strong in many of these areas. So we'd like to stay strong and continue to improve. We expect to see more retention of students and staff. That's a big one. I think that's if I were to categorize this one, number 4 and 5 would be at the top rather than the bottom. We also like to see increased enrollment. And we think by having this focus, we will expect to see all those things. It should be clarified too that this isn't just we're not just going to do this year and then leave it behind. This is an ongoing priority. So now we'll talk a little bit about what we're currently doing and what we're kind of planning to continue to do at both schools. So we can start with the elementary school.
So at the elementary school, we have a building-based SEL, a social emotional team that we created this year. This team meets regularly. That is myself, the counselor, the school psychologist, when she's available, the BCBA, as well as Kim Tran, who continues to fine-tune the plan that we originally put forth, but then also to fine-tune what we're doing and how teachers need, whatever any kinds of supports that our teachers might need. Our second step lessons, we continue again to implement these. There are 20 lessons for each grade, including the anti-bullying ones for October. The student elections this year for council members is grades 4 through 6 for the entire year. Again, we create reading buddies for the older students and the younger students. Again, that sense of relationships and belonging. We're looking to create committees to target belonging activities for both staff, student, and families. Our before and after school care program enhancements. We've been having, Ms. Landeville has been doing a lot of community outreach. We recently had Tyler Leary brought his car. She's been doing a lot of more outreach things, trying to get more things in place and involved with the students in the aftercare program. Positive.
It was a race car, right?
Yes, it is. Positive. I didn't write this in here. Somebody else did. Positive morning announcements every day by me. Every morning, Monday, it's every day of the week, there's something different. So there's always a mindful moment. It's not a moment of silence. It's always a mindful moment where I'm always asking kids to think about a way to either be positive or be kind, as well as each day of the week, there's something different. So Monday is always a joke of the day. Tuesday is the national day of. Wednesday is word of the day. Kids get a vocabulary word and definition. Thursday is a riddle, and Friday is song of the day, which is quite popular. And I got some feedback from upper grade kids that they needed to make sure I was not playing songs just for the teachers because they were the ones who usually got the songs first. The kids benefited from that, but
I heard some feedback that some classrooms' phones don't work as well as others. Just
they keep saying that, but you know, I just got to push the button to main office, but yeah. And then we continue having we have 4 yearly PTA sponsored movie nights. So again, this opportunity for families to come together and have an opportunity to talk and kids to be able to come out and play and hang out. And we just had our most recent one this past Friday that the 5th and 6th grade sponsored.
I think just something to add here too, because I think it's important to highlight too, is the work that we've been doing with Responsive Classroom, which has community building as a cornerstone of its philosophy.
Yeah, I had dedicated, the teachers were really concerned about making sure that there was dedicated time. So we created in the schedule that the specialists have their prep the first 50-minute block of the morning so that students are never taken out of, and they have that opportunity and time for morning meeting, which has the 4 components so that there is that sense of community building and belonging in the classroom.
Which I think is really important to highlight, because we can prioritize things all we want. You can say you're going to do this, you can try to do all the work for it, but until you have the structures and the mechanisms in place to do that work, and specifically in education, the time designated for it, it simply doesn't get done. So the fact that we've rebuilt the kind of the schedule to include that structure, I think is a real key piece here to highlight the commitment that we've made to it.
is that new this year?
Yes.
That change?
Yep. Future plans. We're in the process of working with, the SEL committee has put forth a check-in, check-out. So tier 1, Responsive Classroom, and our second step, our tier 1, everybody gets the same information together in the classroom. The check-in, check-out is more of a tier 2. It is about having students with a trusted adult, a trusted grown-up, who they are having regular check-ins with. So again, that sense of belonging and that relationship building for some students who might need some added and extra time with an adult to just, again, be that positive influence, have that quick pep talk of encouragement. These are, again, opportunities for kids to start feeling if they're having a bit of a trouble or difficulty with some of their social and emotional learning, have that opportunity to have a more consistent adult who's checking in on them regularly throughout the day. Additional reading buddy pairings between the older grades and younger grades. Our other grades right now, up 5th and 6th, are pairing up with younger students, but we're also having conversations about trying to figure out and find if our schedule allows it so that some of the other grades can do that as well. Really kind of thinking about mindfulness and energizers as far as, this idea of encouraging a sense of belonging when we have opportunities where kids are looking, the teacher notices that kids are kind of like, petering out, not paying as much of attention. When do you do an energizer versus some of the mindfulness to really pull the kids all back together in a calmer way? Student friendships and social skill groups for identified students. We do want to think about doing more climate enhancing activities for the school. We are currently in the process of working on our SEL grants, which are being completed right now. We want to make sure that we're thinking about the funding work around how to support more tier 2 supports that might be needed based on both our DESA data as well as teacher input, and trying to also work making sure that we're doing updating on our website to enhance some of the accessibility for families.
So I'll move on to Smith Academy now, and I'll try to not talk as much. I was told by my 8-year-old at soccer practice the other day that, Dad, you talk too much. You just want to play. Okay. So we have many community events that the student council takes a real leadership role in, and not just leadership. They do it all from start to finish in planning, including homecoming, March Madness, the snowball, et cetera. And that I think this is a real great thing that we do. I think back to my days in high school. Pep rallies were all centered around a team. And people cheered them on, and that was the pep rally. Our pep rallies, they involve the whole school. There's tug of wars, there's dodgeball, there's singing. It's more of a community event, and I think is really well done. We have SEL teams at the elementary school as well as the high school and district-wide to make sure that we are continuing systematic work towards developing those competencies. So where are we and where do we need to go? And Mr. Tran has been a really, really great at kind of the helm of that work. We've also implemented the second step curriculum. We've done it up through 12th grade now. So the second step has an extension beyond just middle school now, up through 12th grade. So that work will continue preschool through 12th grade, which is great. We put together, in addition to the anti-bullying work that Second Step does and stuff that we're doing in schools, Mr. Duncan has worked with a really well-renowned presenter to come in to do an assembly for students. And he's worked both at Smith, but also at the elementary school to get this presenter to come in and do, I think, 4 different presentations for different age groups throughout the day that involve kids and talk and really kind of impress upon them the important role that they can play in supporting each other in being upstanders. We continue to work with Getting to Why with our students who've been working with the SPIFFy data and specifically around how we can improve at Smith Academy. And so a lot of that data is around ways that we can help support our students make good decisions. We have X-Block we've talked quite a bit about in our 6th grade conversation about providing opportunities for students to connect. I think the importance of that really can't be overstated, that we have opportunities for students to connect with each other around a shared interest that's just for having fun and connecting. So that opportunity is embedded within the school. We have about 60% of our students are involved in sports. So that is a ratio that I would love to compare statewide, because I think we were probably close to the top of the number of students the percentage of students that we have involved in sports. I can't think of any other school that could boast that number. In fact, I just found homework for myself. And something that's not student focused, but I think is really important too, is we have a vibrant social committee among staff. So they plan monthly outings. They went to Mike Mays. They've gone to other area haunts to just have fun with each other, which is great. Some of the future plans here were sort of brainstormed and connected with some of the stuff at the elementary school through our SEL teams. But developing a check-in, check-out program for students in need. Sometimes a kid might just need a little extra TLC, and they have someone they can come to. It doesn't have to be their teacher. It can be just someone they've connected with the school. Hey, here's how I'm feeling today. All right, what are we going to do about it? That kind of thing. At the end of the day, hey, how was your day? Did good things happen? That kind of thing. We actually just submitted today a grant to continue to fund some of the work around enhancing school climate and our current SEL mission. So Julie Tangway, Kim Tran, and Jean Hobby spent an astronomical amount of time over the last couple of weeks working on this grant. and they put it through today. So we're hoping that that can help fund some more work in this area, both staffing wise as well as just time wise to help develop that. We're working to develop our student and family mentor program for students and families who are new to the school, whether that be through school choice or whether that be through just coming into the community. I think I'd like to kind of extend that, and we've been talking about extending that to just a peer mentor kind of big brother sort of program. We've done that on an ad hoc kind of basis, but we'd like to standardize that. We are looking to kind of continue to revise our curriculum. When you do that, you increase relevance, you increase students' experience. You hear a lot about that being done in former English teacher here. So you hear a lot about that being done through literature. Okay, what is how can we teach important themes, important subjects through literature, and by including newer literature, sometimes that is a great way to kind of increase that. We've developed an enrollment task force that's going to be meeting to look at simply at the issue of enrollment district-wide. We've worked with the trustees to identify areas where we can look at volunteerism and showcase it. So students were kind of advertising when they're working out in the community with maybe purple shirts or something like that. And just to increase volunteerism. And then we continue to have connections between our sports at the high school as well as rec programs, where our students will go down and lead clinics and help with practice, that kind of thing. And we've continued to update the website. We'll be adding staff bios soon to the website as well. And we just wanted to end with a kind of a list of some of the things that have been happening that the schools are involved in to help continue with community and family engagement. So homecoming was, I said this before, it was wonderful this week, and there was a real sense of community, not just around Smith Academy. I mean, that was the focal point, but it felt like the whole town was there. It was great. We've had students that help with civic engagement. They, even if they can't vote, they'll volunteer to babysit at town meeting to be part of that process. Civics projects are now embedded in the curriculum, so that's in 8th grade and 12th grade, or 8th grade and high school. Usually it's landed in 12th grade, but it can be anytime in high school. Students participate in a civics project, which is a part research and part action, where they take steps to improve their community. We have continued to communicate regularly with families about upcoming events, about ways that they can be involved, about ways that they can volunteer. In the last piece here, this is something that is new coming up. It's an event that is supposed to just kind of bring people together, but we partner with community organizations regularly when they use our space for different events, whether that be to hold a training for referees for the MIAA, whether it be for Heads Up to try to bring people together from different political viewpoints. We continue to try to make sure that our facilities are a spot that's not just for school, but also for the community to use for community events. And we'll continue to support that as any way we can. All right, that's the last slide. I wasn't joking about the 43. So.
Questions from the committee?
Go ahead.
Nope, you.
Oh, all right. You mentioned 60% in sports, and that's one of the top numbers you think for schools. And you don't have to have an answer for this now,
okay.
But I'd like us to be mindful about what we're doing for the other 40%.
Mm-hmm.
If we have after-school sports for 60% of our students, what are we doing for the other 40%? Whether we survey them to find out if there's interest in having an art club or this or that, or something to do for them after school. Sports has a huge history in Hatfield, and that Smith Academy is known for sports. But I would like us to not forget our other 40% and provide something for them to do as well.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. And something that's been on our radar too. I won't give an exhaustive answer or list,
Nope.
but one of the things that we have explored and will continue to explore is esports is now a big thing for students who like to participate in those. And we just recently, through our PACE grant, upgraded our computer lab at Smith Academy with new machines, so that they'll be able to support esports too. So should we move forward with that, we have the facilities now to be able to do that.
But look into other things as
Yeah,
well. If
absolutely.
you survey the students, because if they're not into esports or active physical
Yep.
sports, what else do they have?
True.
Yeah, something in the performance arts would be amazing.
Oh,
Musicals coming
Well-
up, right?
we had over 40 people sign up for the musical this year.
Nice.
Woohoo!
Wow.
Yeah. So those results came through. I didn't even occur to me to put those on here, but yeah, we had. So we're planning to run the musical again this year, and we had an overwhelming amount of people sign up, almost to the point where I'm questioning it. But right now, I'm going to go with it, and then if it turns out that Connor signed Stevie up and didn't ask him, then we can cross from there. But it seems like there's a big group that is
Good.
interested.
Great.
All of this kind of makes sense, right? Like an engaged employee is a happier
Right.
employee, is a more productive
It's-
employee. An engaged resident is happier in the community, and they help create more engaged, happier residents. And an engaged employee creates more
Yeah.
engaged, happier employees. Whereas someone who's disengaged
Mhm.
it can fester from there, and you can have
Right.
more disengaged, more negative.
Yeah, you can go from disengaged to disillusioned, and we want to not have that.
So I'm imagining you're going to come back at some point and share, you're doing some surveys, some pre and post. Can you have a sense of timing on have you already started that work?
Yes, so we'll be the vocal data. So the survey pieces are either yearly or a couple times a year. The DESA, I'm not sure when that is.
November.
Okay, so thank you.
The
November.
first one is November.
So that'll be the pre data for that, and that's a new indicator this year. I think that'll be really beneficial. Vocal data is it's only 5th, 8th, and 10th grade that they take that. So it's, the data is it's more MCAS-y. So it's not as actionable.
So I'm imagining we're going to have a second presentation at the end of the year where we're
Yes.
going to come back and
Yep.
and check in.
Yes, we will.
Committee, knowing that this is the front end of this conversation, is there anything you want to speak to? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think this is exciting stuff. District reports. The committee has had a chance to pre-read, but I'm sure there's some things you might like to share that you'd like
Sure.
to call out. So you don't have to go through all of it.
I won't, I promise.
I'm just looking at the time.
Um,
And I know Becca has 47 policies for us to
I
review.
have so many policies.
And committee, likewise, if you have questions, by all means.
I think right now, an important piece to call out staffing wise is that we are very close to fully staffed. We have, I believe, one ESP at the elementary school right now to fill. So we're continuing to work on that. which is great and it feels good. We welcomed a new teacher in the STAR program this week, and he's stepped right in and been rolling. So, yeah, Mr. Thomas Black. Thank you.
Awesome.
I have a question,
Mhm.
and I'm going to preempt Becca on this one because I'm
Yep.
sure it was her question as well. You know what's coming.
Yes.
At this point, should we find another vendor
Yeah.
for my
We-
school books?
If we cannot get it going by November, by the
Writing this
By the
down.
end
Yeah.
of next
then
week.
by the end of next week, we will have a new vendor.
Okay.
Yep. So I won't go into a whole story here, but we had to kind of redo the work that was done there, because it was so cumbersome for the user that it would have turned everyone off. So now we've created it so that someone can go in, figure out how much they owe, and type the amount in rather than having to choose 7 or 8 different options through. So that's where it is right now, and I'm waiting for them to say it'll go live so I can send out communication to families and say this is how you sign up for My School Bucks, and go from there. So that's
This is a very jaded committee when it comes to my
yes,
school
I know.
bucks.
I know. And
We're getting a new vendor
Yeah.
if it's not better by next week.
if it's not up and
My
rolling
nose.
by next week, I'll
Would
start
probably
looking.
volunteer to help you find
Yeah.
a new vendor at this
I-
point.
Like,
Yeah.
There was some favorable news about fusion power this week as well. So you're fighting.
Is there any update on enrollment? I see that as a subcategory there for you.
Our numbers right now at Smith Academy were 109, and at the elementary school, I believe it's 202.
When do those numbers get finalized with DESI for the year? Is it October 1st or October 31st?
October 1.
October
Yeah.
1.
Okay.
Yep.
So we are 9 kids down from a year ago,
Yes.
I think.
Yep.
Keep in mind, a year ago when we had this conversation, we were 20 something down.
Mm.
The year before when we had this conversation, we were in the upper 40s.
And we had
So
9
the-
kids go to Vogue. So like,
Yeah,
it's
so the
a non-competitive
trend,
switch.
the trend is very good. It's not where we want it to be.
And this feels like a good time to segue to my
Your other thing.
my other report, which I won't go through the whole report as well, but I'm really excited to talk about a partnership we've been developing with Vermont State University. So this partnership came out of the work that went into putting the innovation pathway proposal together. When we were talking with Vermont State University, we were talking about coursework that is offered through their adventure education program and outdoor education program. And it came up that they offer the opportunity for high school staff to become certified within the Vermont State school system to develop college level coursework that high schools can offer in-house. And so we're working with staff to develop those courses right now to be able to offer to Smith Academy students. The biggest benefit I think that we'll find is that it eliminates the most common barrier we have for students who struggle to make dual enrollment work, which is either that those courses have to be online or that they have to leave campus to go to those places and they miss classes, they miss extracurriculars, they miss other things during that time because the schedules don't, a college course at Smith College might not start at 10:32 when our block starts. So this will allow our staff to get, the ability to offer those courses. There can be some overlap and kind of parity with what we already offer. So if we convert, say, like an AP Calculus course to a college level introduction to calculus, students will still get the opportunity to take the AP exam, and they will, by default of having passed that course, get credit for having passed that college level course. So we already offer several courses that may fall into this camp, and we're developing others so that by the time students graduate, if they choose to, they could have the opportunity to take 4 or 5 college level courses over their junior and senior year, and really kind of have a full full semester of coursework under their belt, which is wonderful. And it's not something I think that's happening elsewhere. Part of the reason that Vermont State University is doing this is because they are also struggling with enrollment. And so this is a way that they've reached out and tried to develop connections with high schools that are they may have students that are potentially interested in looking at that system.
Is there any cost involved in having our teachers certified or able to teach these courses?
So the cost involved is around the time. So I've applied for a planning grant to help do this, and I'm expecting to hear back any day now about that grant, which would allow us to stipend teachers for the time that goes into making those courses. Some courses we already have a really good start with because we offer those AP levels, which are essentially designed to be an introduction to college course. Other courses will be a little more involved because if we have a course on art history that we want to offer that's not developed yet, it'll take a little more time to develop that. Once developed, it has to align to the the course description and program of studies of Vermont State University. And then the syllabus that our teachers create goes to the university and the department for approval. So they'll either approve it or send it back and say, we'd like to, have this happen. So that's the process of doing that. I would love to be able to say, oh, we'll be able to offer one this year, but I think realistically it would be for next fall, because the courses we can offer will also align with our schedule, so they'd be year-long courses rather than the semester base of the college. Mm-hmm. Sure.
You kind of touched on it, but if you can hit it again and maybe hit it a little harder.
Sure.
What is the value of taking a dual enrollment course over an AP course?
That's a great question. So an AP course, and this sort of depends a little bit, but an AP course, they're focused around the AP exam. So the AP, if you take an AP course, the expectation is you take the AP test. If you take the AP test and you score high enough, then most colleges will accept that as either a credit or, and this has been more common recently, they'll accept it as having satisfied a prerequisite. So you don't have to take, if you take AP Calc and you pass it at a certain level, you won't have to take your college level math class. They might not say that you got credit for it, but you won't have to take it. So those are the most common ways that AP works. A dual enrollment course, you'll get a transcript from the college with having completed a college level course. So it would be honored at any school within the Vermont system, and you can apply when you apply for college. If you have those credits from another university or college, they will often let a certain number of credits transfer for credit in that college. So you would just need to pass that class, not take the AP exam. You could also take the AP exam too. Students would be prepared to take that after finishing one of these courses.
So part of the difference is passing a class versus passing a one-time test.
Yes. Yep. And you asked for the value. I mean, the value is you get college course experience. There's a monetary value to this too. I mean, with the cost of college and universities right now, if you can graduate with a semester under your belt and potentially graduate a semester early from college, I mean, that can be a $20,000 price tag when you factor in room and board and everything else, or more, depending.
Okay. I actually came up with another question as you were
Sure.
speaking. So 2 more questions. Are there any Massachusetts schools that offer a similar program? Like, did you reach out to MCLA or something? Not
that I have been able to find.
Okay.
I didn't reach out to private universities. I spoke with a couple folks from UMass, and they thought it was really interesting from the state schools. But I haven't reached out to private colleges, universities. it seems to be that there may not have been the catalyst to think about this yet, because the enrollment challenges that Vermont State University in a rural area, kind of up there at these campuses are dealing with might not be at the same level around here. But short answer to your question is I have not reached out to private universities, no.
Okay. Do we have the option, the ability, the desire, or is there any advantage to partnering with other high schools in this, either by if they're doing a similar thing or allowing their students to enroll in our dual enrollment course?
Yeah, we could absolutely do that. And that's sort of on the horizon for next steps. Thinking about reaching out to places like Frontier or Hadley and saying, hey, we have, their schedule is more likely to be similar to ours than it is to a college. And we could say, we're offering this course, your kids could take it. Absolutely, we could do that. What was the first part of your question? I think I answered the second part.
No, that was, you hit it.
And I haven't reached out yet because this is a fairly new partnership. And I didn't want anyone else to do it before us, quite frankly.
It's fair.
I think it's a pretty neat feather in our cap, and the work that we've already put into it will put us ahead of the curve if other schools are doing this.
When would you start to tell families and students about this?
I've already started. I announced it at our open house. Once we have courses developed, I think we'll be able to announce the partnership, and then once we have courses developed, we'll be able to announce what those courses are over the course of years. And that work should be starting very soon. I think this week is the week we are supposed to hear back about the Innovation Pathways Planning Grant. And if we can't find if for some reason we don't get that grant, I will be upset, and we'll find the funding elsewhere to make sure we can pay teachers to do this, because there is a time investment. It's hard to build a new course.
But once it's done.
Yep.
It's done. Other questions about this or anything else that was on administrative reports? Questions for Mrs. Petra about HES?
Only one, which might be for the both of you. The heat in the building today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Impressive.
That's what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
Part of what happened a few weeks ago is our systems are only meant to either have air conditioning or heat. There is no in between. So the other piece that I also learned after the company came in today was that there was a part that was broken that they have now ordered and will be in the next couple of days. So
Back when it gets cooler.
Yeah.
but
I
at
will
least
say
it will be
that
better.
I had the same problem in my building at UMass today,
Yeah.
where it was
Yeah.
like 90
Everywhere.
degrees
Well,
inside because there's
all-
a central.
Mhm.
So when the air is on, it's
Or the
on.
other.
When the heat is, and they turn off the air, they turn on the heat. And of course, it is 75, 78 degrees outside, and the temp is set to be 72. It's going to go up because it's hotter outside,
Yeah.
and it's making it hotter inside. So I had librarians who were not very happy about the temp.
I don't think mine's
And
on.
there was a
Too
kind of a
much.
perfect storm today
It's
with
so
the heat,
cold.
because there was the broken piece, which was one part. There was a every year they have to adjust the set points. That's kind of the first couple of weeks is they try to figure out where things are. There was some kind of malfunction with the software on the set point, which had the set point way up for unoccupied rooms. So additionally, in addition to being really hot today, it was probably hot all weekend when it was supposed to be set as unoccupied. And so there was that lingering heat that existed, not just in the classrooms, but in the walls and everything else, which needed to kind of work through. And so those things work together to make it really, really hot today. But it was nice outside, so I think, did people go outside?
Yeah, and I had put that
Yeah.
in to staff if it was unbearably hot, that they could have used the gazebo and some of the outside classroom space, so. I did see students outside.
Beautiful outside.
It was a good day to get
It
stuff
was.
outside.
Absolutely.
I just had somebody reach out to me about it, so I just wanted to,
Yeah.
for everyone to hear.
Yes.
Out of curiosity, do you know off the top of your head how much we spent on HVAC repairs this year, and do you know how much this is going to cost?
I ball HVAC repairs.
It's been within the budget so
It
far.
has been within the budget. I want to say we're probably close to 10,000.
It's within the budget, but we're in October.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know how much this one will cost yet.
Okay.
So that's a good transition into the finance committee update. And I'll just, right now, everything is on track with the budget. And worth noting, I think we may have mentioned at the last meeting that thanks to the town ARPA funds, which need to be spent by the end of the year, they graciously are helping take care of some things that were on our capital planning list, which is HVAC and the elementary freezer. And so bids are in for all of that work, and it's due to be completed by the end of the year. So that is good news, a little extra coming in. So you can read the report for everything else, but
The fixes that we're doing with the ARPA funds, did the bids come in any way less than what the town agreed to give us? So that no, okay, just okay.
No.
didn't one bid
And
actually adjusted their bid down?
Yeah. So one bid came in higher. And so we actually had to go back to the town and request that we shift capital funds from the Smith Academy HVAC project to the freezer project at the elementary school, because ended up being about 10,000 more than had been originally budgeted for that.
So some of the upcoming work from your school finance subcommittee is getting updated capital bids for all the things that some of these things have been sitting on the capital list for many years,
Generations.
and might need new bids because those prices just aren't current. So with that, I would really like to move on to policy subcommittee.
Woohoo.
Ms. Bench.
Okay, we got a lot of policy on the list, but hopefully won't take too long tonight. Just to start off with our policy updates, I would like to mention that the policy subcommittee has been discussing our overall goals. We like to select a policy or a focus for the school year. And this year, policy as a subcommittee has decided to focus on our code of conduct and related policies, of which there are many. We started tallying up all the different policies that either directly or relate to code of conduct in our schools. And I think it was like 10 or 15.
I thought it was like 13 or 14, yeah.
In that range of policies that all sort of,
even the handbooks.
not even, we're talking about district
Just the
policy.
policy.
Actual district
Totally
policies.
not even the handbook. Yes, that is kind of the big thing that we're starting to look into. Although we don't have anything to present on that tonight, that's where we're going. In between that work, we are sort of continuing our regulatory review. This is not time sensitive, but we're always keeping it on our radar. We have at least some of the policies that we're looking at today. One of the policies is sort of more of a general regulatory review. And then as we're going along, I know we've talked about it in the past, but there are different schools of thought on how to handle school policy. Sometimes in the past, my understanding is that the recommendation was to have a policy with an attached procedure, which is like a -R policy. That is a little bit cumbersome. And so we've been thinking about how to sort of have a procedure manual that is also online that links directly to our policies, and also how to deal with forms. Because some of the things that we have in our policy manual are actually just forms that are like, Google Doc, and we would like to improve that system. So these are all the things on our radar, but the focus, we've selected our focus policy and we'll go from there. That's what I have to say about that. And certainly if the committee has any questions.
I'm excited. I think that's great.
Okay.
Particularly love the idea of the procedure manual and for like all of it, because that would be, technology would make
Streamline
that so
everything.
easy. Yes.
Yeah, the dash R for procedures was before
When we had a
technology.
giant binder.
Yeah, there was a big binder
yeah.
of stuff, and then you just kept everything together. But now with technology, it'll be so much easier to pull
link
out the
everything.
procedures and link them to it, and have another place for all the forms to sit, and they're linked.
It makes it easier too, just for anybody who's trying to
Yes.
access our policies.
Particularly
just to,
thinking
like-
about staff implementation, that
Yes.
should make it simpler.
Yes, exactly. With that said, we have a first reading policy before the committee, policy IKF, which is graduation requirements. We have made edits to reflect best practices for college enrollment. Of note, this adds a community service requirement. It changes some of the language around MCAS and updates other things. So we had sort of the policy is before the committee. So we would like to hear feedback if anyone has any. This
So-
would be implemented like not this year, probably. The community service requirement, right?
Right.
Did we discuss that?
Yeah, it would be
So-
effective next year.
So right now it's drafted with 20 hours of community service for grades 9 through 12.
Yep.
Prorated
Yeah.
if
Yes.
someone comes in midway through. So you could show up as a freshman and get your 20 hours done, and
You
Could
could,
be
knock it out
done.
in a weekend if you
yeah,
wanted to.
to,
if you really wanted to. Yep.
okay. Have you? My other question was: is it worth? And we're not quite there yet, but is it worth making sure that we talk about dual enrollment credits and how do those work, and if there is any
On the
need
minimum
to
course
have them,
requirements.
or just that they count this, like just
Mhm.
I don't know if that needs to be
Yeah,
articulated
I
in
mean,
this or not.
It could be. I'd have to look at the handbook to see what the language is around dual enrollment courses there, but they have counted towards graduation.
I don't see why they wouldn't, right?
I
I mean, they're
would
high school
think
and
so.
college, so
To me, it's just another place where we could just kind of be like,
Yep.
yep, and you get credit for
Yeah.
that two
Just to like
places.
hit a comment.
You know,
Yeah.
it is outlined in the handbook, and it's also outlined about how the GPA will work from them. Because if you're taking a college level course, it's weighted the same as an AP class. So for GPA standings, that is impactful. Absolutely.
And just for anyone else who's not looking at the written document, the changes for, it looks like additional credits required for math, going from 17 and a half to 20.
Health.
Is that a real change, or so this is just
Yeah,
catching up with what is
Mhm.
practiced?
Yeah.
Okay. And health is 3.75.
Yep.
And foreign language at 10, which looks like it's brand new.
Yeah. So foreign language is 2 years of foreign language is that is what kind of the state recommends, and that's what colleges look at, to have 2 full years of foreign
Is
language.
that new?
No?
Practically
It's-
already
It's in
happening.
It's
practice,
happening.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what, okay.
Was it included in the electives? Is that it? Because there's 10
Yeah.
10 credits that were taken off of
Yes.
It
electives.
just basically
Yeah.
breaks
That's
it out.
basically breaks it down from that foreign language is not just under the umbrella of
Correct.
elective. It is
Yep.
its
So-
own.
This looks like more change than it really is.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I just
this
wanted to
change has caught
understand.
up with what we're doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was 51.25 credits for elective.
Yeah.
Now it's 40. And then foreign language is 10. So we're not really adding
No.
that many credits.
So, and I recognize community service has to get approved. Are we going to, but what gets approved will be handled outside of policy?
Correct.
Yes.
does that get approved by the dean or by an advisor or?
It gets approved by administration.
Administration.
Yep. And the barometer that we have used has been service to the community that occurs outside of the regularly scheduled school day. So it's, if someone's doing something in their TAing for a class, and they're like, oh, hey, I need you to go, do this. That's not going to count for community service. But if they volunteer to come after hours and, pick up trash after homecoming, not that we had a lot of trash at homecoming, but if someone were to come do that, that could be considered community service. If they were going out into the community volunteering at the senior center or at an event during during any of the celebrations, that would be considered. So the goal is to get students outside of school day out into the community to do that work.
4 years of babysitting for town meeting, they're in.
Yeah.
It depends on the year, maybe less.
Part
Have
of
you
this,
been to one?
part of this creates it creates a requirement for students. It also creates a responsibility for us to make sure that we have our systems in place to promote the opportunities that exist. And there are plenty of opportunities that exist.
Yeah.
So we've kind of standardized our approach to how we send it out to students here. Rather than sending it out, oh, we got this email, we're going to send this email out to students. We have a running list of all the opportunities that exist, who the point people are, how students can get in touch and sign up.
Yeah.
And
So
that's updated constantly.
In theory, there's a way for the community to come to pitch in and say, we need this added
Yeah,
to your board.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Great.
for sure. Actually, I would like to mention, I know we had an informal discussion about the community service requirement at our last meeting, and I actually already heard from a member of the Historical Commission who said they would love to have students
Great.
volunteer.
And I heard from the Legion.
Wonderful.
So I think like the community is interested in this.
Yes.
I can imagine Adam as a high school student thinking like, oh man, but Adam as an adult is thinking this is a fantastic thing and I can do it so many ways. I'm thinking like we just had a flu shot clinic at the senior center, and like if you have a student who is interested in nursing or medicine, they could volunteer to like just help check people in at the vaccine clinic or something.
Well, and honestly, we have a lot of students that are involved, and they don't take the step to seek out kind of,
Right.
They don't seek credit for a lot of
Yeah.
stuff that they do. We have a really involved group, and oftentimes around National Honor Society induction time, we'll have students come to us and say, "Oh, I did this at this time. I did this at this time," and they'll tally these things up, things that they've already done. This gives them a mechanism to, as they do those things, get them approved and tracked, so that they're not scrambling at the last minute to do that. So I mean, as a side benefit to students, the goal is to get them involved in the community. Side benefit is I suspect we'll have more students qualifying for the National Honor Society because this won't be a barrier for them.
Any other thoughts from the committee?
I love it. I think it does put the onus back on administration to do all the tracking. I mean, so we're going to have to walk the
We did
walk,
discuss that. Yes.
but I'm not worried about that. And if they have their purple T-shirt on that says volunteer, there's no harm with that.
Yeah.
Little PR would be a good thing.
Dr. Kathy, do we keep the change on the MCAS thing if question 2 does not pass? Do we just keep it just because it's easier?
I think the
feel
new language
comfortable with
was
that line.
great.
Yeah.
So,
Covers it either way.
and it defocuses that, which
Right.
I think was quite nice. Is the recommendation that this is a reading and we're going to have a second reading?
I think that, yes, that
Okay.
was our
Right.
recommendation, although I don't know that we need 3 full readings.
Yeah, I
personally.
could imagine this coming back next time for a vote.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Any other feedback before we move on?
Okay, so my next long list, our next long list of policies are largely related to Title IX. And I know we already passed some handbook language. We already passed the main Title IX policy at our last meeting. These are essentially recommended by our legal department. So I'm just going to list them out really briefly. We have policy AC, which is non-discrimination policy, including harassment and retaliation. This is recommended by our legal department and is updated using the MASC guidance. The committee has it has 2 versions available, the old version and the proposed version. Then we also have AC-R, which it is a procedure, but this is recommended by our legal department. So we are putting it forward for a vote at this time. We will consider moving these R policies to a linked procedure manual, but for now we feel it's important to pass this while we think about how to get our systems in order. That would be a new policy. Then we have policy ACA, non-discrimination on the basis of sex. Again, an updated policy recommended by the legal department. ACA-R, non-discrimination on the basis of sex under Title IX, including sex-based harassment. Same, recommended by the legal department. And then we have policy ACE, which is non-discrimination on the basis of disability. As we were reviewing all these others, we realized that it had been quite a while since we updated ACE, and we thought we would like to include that in. There's basically no changes. MASC re-reviewed it in a more recent year, and it is still compliant with the law, but it's been a long time since we renewed ours. So we wanted to be diligent with that. There was one spot, Dr. Driscoll, that I had a small question. I wanted to, I feel bad. I already want to make an edit to these. If someone would like to make a complaint under Title IX, where should they be referred? I want to make sure it's correct in here. As I was, that was blank in the legal document that they sent us.
They could go to any administrator, but John Salvadaros is the Title IX coordinator.
Okay.
Yep.
And is there something they need to do, or they should just reach out directly to?
I would just reach out directly to him.
So we should
Delegate.
just say the Director of Student Services instead of his name, yeah.
I'm gonna do that right now.
Yeah, that was my, I guess I had two things. One was, do they need to have specific names, or can they just have titles?
In the policy, it can be just titles. Specific names would need to get, I mean, we have to report to the state who our Title IX coordinator or
Right.
Title IX coordinator is. So we would do that. We need to list it on the website in the handbooks.
Yeah.
Okay,
So but for policy, I think you can just list the title.
So let me make a small amendment to that too. The template policy from legal did have the actual
The full
name
name,
of the people, but I'm going to right now just say,
because that's an AC-R and ACA, I believe.
As long as we list it in the handbook
Handbook.
and
yep.
Handbook
And it's
website.
on the
Like,
website.
I
But then
I
we're not
feel
having
better
to
about,
update the
yes,
policy.
I
Right.
actually feel much better about it. I was just following their template.
I'm with you though on following the
Um,
template. I get it.
Can you, Emily Anderson is the 504 coordinator? Is there another title, or should I just say the 504 coordinator?
504 coordinator.
Okay.
She at Smith Academy, she is.
Okay,
The
You could say the
director of student services is the district coordinator.
okay. I'm gonna do that right now.
And then I think the template had an extra, I know this
There we
is
go. Nope.
crazy.
this is so
Hyperfocus,
good.
the template on AC had an extra period
Oh, I fixed
on the
it.
second line. Okay,
I fixed it on the other one.
awesome.
Okay, let me just make sure. Sorry that those were like the one things I just wanted to make sure. It actually, an aside, it took a lot of formatting.
oh, we can relate to that.
It took so much formatting. We had these beautiful policies from legal, but they needed to be all reformatted.
Are you taking out all the Emily Anderson references?
I just changed
Okay, because one of my notes
on-
said was that like at some point it said
Yes.
the Emily Anderson.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, that's
I know.
That
The
feels
title,
appropriate, though.
the
It's great, right?
504 coordinator. Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
Put that on her door.
and then when you have a moment, I think I found just the tiniest of typos in AC.
Tell me.
Second
So
line.
in AC under number 3, I think there's just a wayward space
Oh,
at the very
yes.
beginning.
Let's.
Yeah.
There it is.
The working looked like it was just slightly off.
I rely on you all.
You feel like you're in good company tonight?
I do.
Normally, Kathy is like the eagle eye of all this stuff, and I feel like
I love these
you've
things.
trained us all.
I took note of Kathy's attention to detail, and I was like, I'm going to find something.
You're gonna get one. You're gonna get one in.
Do one better. Any other edits or notes on these? It is a lot.
No, they're in such keeping. It made a lot of sense. And then the committee. You want to talk about? We could do one fell swoop of things.
Sure. You want me to talk
Because
about the
There's some eliminations that
Yep.
go with this, correct?
Yep, exactly. So we have ACAB-S and ACAB-R. That content has been replaced by these updated policies. So we propose to eliminate them. And as we were going through things, we also suggest eliminating EBC supplemental interim COVID policies.
For all the time that took, Becca and I will be happy.
I
let
cannot wait
that
to
go.
vote to eliminate it personally.
48 meetings?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any conversation on AC, ACR, ACA, ACAR, ACE, and the elimination of ACAB-S, ACAB-R, or EBC supplemental? Any conversation?
I am all for getting rid of any policy entitled ACAB.
I had to look that up. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Is there a motion?
I think we should do it in
You need
two
two parts.
votes
That's fine.
because
So
of the
let's-
elimination
That's
part.
fine. So let's.
I'll
we're-
make a motion to approve waiving the readings, the policies AC, AC-R, ACA, ACA-R, and ACE with the corrections as
We
presented.
just, yeah. So you're moving to waive the reading and approve them?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I'm going to just jump in and beat you to the point. I am going to make a motion to eliminate ACAB-S, ACAB-R, and EBC supplemental. Is there a second?
Second. Sorry.
There you go. It's okay.
Amon's getting credit for that one. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. That is the completion of our agenda for this evening. I appreciate the extra time tonight. It was a good meeting. And if there is a motion for an adjournment.
So moved.
Okay. And Adam second. All in favor?
Aye.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.